Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast number 161. I hope you're all having an amazing weekend out there and enjoying the last couple days of this month of April before we transition into what could be one of the most important months for this year, May 2024. It's a month that I've been preparing you all for a while now, and we have a lot to talk about today, specifically focused on the next week to 2 weeks ahead. We'll be kicking off the month of May with a important Federal Reserve FOMC meeting where Fed Chair Powell will be speaking on May 1st to open up the month. We'll definitely be focusing on this upcoming monthly close to prepare you all for the setup moving into the new month. And I will be decoding this recent bank collapse that just happened a couple days ago. So we'll be revealing a lot of that code and how it prepares us for what to anticipate next in the early stages of what could be multiple dominoes falling in the retail banking sector. But let's get started on today's podcast because we have so much to cover. This will effectively be the bank collapse decoded because I have this code I'm about to reveal has been within all of the past decodes we've been sharing over the past couple months. So that'll be really cool. So you could just see how it's all coded and scripted together. And then ultimately how we could apply this code moving forward now that we've had multiple trigger events, all just happening over the past 2 to 3 months. So before we get started, make sure to get comfortable, get relaxed, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's the morning time, or maybe a glass of wine, or some beer, or any beverage of your choice if it's a little bit later out there, wherever you are. And again, welcome to Red Pill Podcast 161. Really excited to share this presentation with you all today. And if you are new to the Wolfpack, welcome. So great to have you here with us. And if you've yet to get access to our Discord server, just go ahead and send me a direct message on Patreon with your Discord username, and I will reply back to you in a Patreon message with your Discord server invite. I keep getting people commenting below in the posts here on Patreon asking to get Discord access. It's very clear. I cannot help you that way. You need to direct message me on Patreon. If you can't figure out how to do that, if you see me commenting inside of this Patreon post, you could just click on my profile picture here in Patreon, and it will bring you to a screen which will show you how to send me a message. And if you're unable to figure that out, just go to YouTube and type in how to DM on Patreon, and it will share a tutorial on how to do that. And we are doing awesome with the altcoin voting system. I'll be covering a bunch of different projects today. Of course, our usual Ethereum and XRP, as well as Loopring, Algorand, Proton, and Fetch AI. And I'll be sharing some quick words of wisdom on Hedera, HBAR, due to some recent volatility that we've had over there. And when we get over to the end of today's decode, I'll be talking a little bit about the past week in the stock market and the setup that we have into the new monthly open of May. Tuning into a post that I shared just yesterday on the Total 3 chart. So looking at all of the crypto altcoins, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, and showing that we're pretty much in a similar spot to where we were in the last cycle. And that's just moments before going absolutely parabolic. And of course, each cycle is going to have a slightly different imprint. But when you're using these Fibonacci retracement tools and you're starting to see everything from these larger time horizons, like these horizontal trading ranges that are 2 to 4 years deep, it helps you get a good gauge on what's likely to happen. But of course, we've talked about it many times that we have this very important month of May, not only during the year of the dragon, but the exoteric presidential election years, and clearly showing us a pullback for this month of May. And we're right there. We're heading into this time frame. And at this time, because of the upcoming FOMC meeting, I think that will be a pivotal role in what to expect, the kind of temperature to expect incoming over the next couple weeks and overall the month. And if you haven't watched the last Red Pill podcast, please check that out. Please check that out. It was packed full of gnosis and Today we're going to be mostly focused on what just happened with Republic First Bank, but quickly, as I mentioned a moment ago, we have a big week ahead with the upcoming FOMC meeting on May 1st, right after our monthly close, which we will be focusing on today, since our monthly close will be this upcoming Tuesday night, just a couple days after this podcast is released. And it's not just any monthly close, it's a bi-monthly candle. So that would be a 2-month candle close. So this is a big one, and we've been tracking this late April into May correction concept for so long now that it's just what we expected, and now that we're here, we have the data to support it. Again, proving the power of this esoteric perspective on these markets and keeping it level-headed, analyzing the data of the past without letting our emotions get in the way. That's what the Wolfpack's all about. And we can see here very clearly that when we check in on the S&P chart, we have a noticeable pullback coming in since the late March timeframe, with this noticeable pullback into third week of April. And even this slight move to the upside that we've gotten recently is something I just covered in the last Red Pill podcast. So if you missed that one, you have to check it out, because the whole week that we just watched unfolded exactly the way I was saying to anticipate it. So it's pretty crazy how cyclical this year of the dragon analysis is. It's like we don't really need to think that hard, which is beautiful to know that there's such a simple system here of just tracking the Chinese year that we have, adding in some other elements such as where are we at with the Hebrew calendar, eclipse cycles, etc. But that's what we're focused on here, and that's how we were able to determine some of these big pivot points in advance. So getting back to this, some of you might have heard this news just a couple days ago. On April 26th, a Philadelphia, Pennsylvania-based bank called Republic First Bancorp collapsed. U.S. regulators closed it down, seized their assets, and it was acquired by another Pennsylvania-based financial institution called Fulton Bank. It's not really that important regarding who came and acquired them, but it's just fascinating how all of the articles that I've seen so far, the headlines, they keep mentioning that this was the first U.S. bank failure of the year, which kind of gives it this vibe that we should anticipate more. Right? Because if you write such a thing, it's kind of making us feel, well, then should there be more? Like, why say first? So yeah, it's very fascinating. All of you probably remember last year with Silicon Valley Bank and Signature, and even some issues with Credit Suisse, and that was all triggered off of that March 11th date. So remember back in February this year, I was warning about this because on March 11th of this year, the Federal Reserve ended their bank term funding program, which was created for the failure of Silicon Valley Bank the prior year and some other banks I just mentioned. Now here we are, and since the Fed has seized that program, they're no longer doing what they were doing to effectively help those banks during that timeline. And shortly after, just a month later, we have Republic First Bank gets the guillotine. It was on April 26th, And I just want to show you some code behind this. So we have 426, and this being the 117th day in the Gregorian calendar. And this 117 ties back to the 9/11 code. So September 11, 2001, that ritual that happened. That is actually the 7/11 code. It is not 9/11 because September has the prefix septem, which means 7 in Latin. It's actually the 7th month in the system. It makes no sense being the 9th. Similarly, the following month is called October, starting with octo. Octo, like octagon, means 8-sided, right? 8. So this Gregorian calendar is effectively a scam, but it's the common calendar most people around the world use. It's what we're doing with our taxes and all other legal framework and applications to certain things. Everything from the least important to the most important, it's pretty much banking on this Gregorian system. So we can call it a scam, but yet have the awareness of its utility. It's not to demean or to be in duality. It's just pointing out a fact. The language is clear here. If it's called October, octo, and that means 8, and that's the prefix, but we call it the 10th month, we have a discrepancy, and that would mean should we just disregard all the other times that we have these prefixes, and now we have no basis in language? You know, it's kind of problematic. So I get this question a lot from people where they're born maybe in October and they're trying to do date numerology on their birthday, and they're thinking, well, if it's actually the 8th month and not the 10th, doesn't that change the value of my numerology? And absolutely. Absolutely it does. But your birthday is what it was believed upon by your parents, who probably believe in this Gregorian system, and the birth certificate said the number 10 instead of 8, and that's kind of the code that you got by the simulacrum, by the matrix. And you could look at it that way. I'm not here to completely derail it and make it so that all the great work that the decoders that have come before me have shared is invalidated, but it's up to you and what your truth is. And my truth is simple. Novem is 9. It's not the 11th month. It has nothing to do with the number 11. It's make-believe, and the world has been scammed right in front of their faces. Getting back to this, I'm just trying to reveal the significance of this 117 and tied to this Republic First Bank. And I know you guys like these little tangents of decoding wisdom because it's applicable now to so many other things that are going on. But getting back on the rails here, 117th day, that's the 117 or the 711 code. This is powerful. Also tied to Bitcoin. Bitcoin, we have the 117 as well. And there's plenty of other examples, but this in particular is tied to a 9/11 ritual in many senses, and it's going to allow us to either see what's coming next, or this is actually the completion of a ritual that we had that started last year with Silicon Valley Bank. But let's take things one step at a time. With the 117, I already told you that September, starting with Septem, would be 7. On the 11th day in that month, it would be 117. That's Tower 1. Then the next tower, or 11, those are the two towers, the twin towers, Yakin and Boaz, and this is the 1 and 1, and then Tower 7 falls, Building 7. That's your 117 ritual that happened on 7/11 date, esoterically. And since this bank collapsed on this specific day of the 117, it's making me think that another bank, or the second tower, if you will, is about to fall soon. And keep this in mind because there is symbolism here. Could very well be the case. Let me show you some of the gematria behind this so that way we could tie in some extra layers into our decode. We have Republic First Bank Corp, which is their official name if you go over here onto Wikipedia, for instance. We're going to have that 101. Remove the 0 using the rules of numerology, and there you go. You have the 1-1, the master number 11, the Twin Towers. Keep this in mind. So we have Republic First Bank Corp giving you the 227, and this is where it's going to get really fascinating today, because 227 is the 49th prime number, and you've been hearing me talk a lot about this 49 code throughout the whole year. We started talking about it a lot more after the 49ers, the San Francisco 49ers, made it to the recent Super Bowl. And there was a clear ritual here because this was a rematch of the same two teams, the 49ers and the Chiefs, back in 2020, which just a month after that Super Bowl concluded, we had the C19 ritual. C19 was declared a pandemic a month later. And the way that those two games turned out were the same. The 49ers won both of those games. And there's a connection here to the 49ers winning games, winning these big exoteric sporting events, if you will, and it following with some problems, some issues. And it's seemingly no different this time. I mean, we pretty much topped out in the market across the board about a month later in the same time frame, and then started to get this pullback. And what's really fascinating about this whole C19 ritual, one thing to point up that just came to my mind now, is that if you look at the Bitcoin chart, we've been talking about this a lot lately, that we topped out at 73K, the only daily close for Bitcoin at 73K on the 73rd day of the year. And since we've been in a corrective and sideways phase, but it's fascinating, this March 13th was this high, because if you go back to the C19 timeframe, this flash crash corrected and correction bottomed out on March 13th. So it's like an as above, so below ritual. You have your below and you have your above, both matching, not only the same sporting events happening in both years, both turning out the same way. And we're getting these two dates to mimic really nicely. And if you look at from February 11th into March 13th, that's pretty much the same vibe. We were just going up in a straight line, while here we were just crashing. Kind of crazy, right? So this chop that we had, if we were to take it from the big correction date to about 40 days later, we're in that 50-day time frame effectively, about 52, 53 days deep into all of this. So who knows how this is all going to shake out, but I find this to be something worth bringing up. The March 13th low and here the March 13th high, as above, so below. Same teams in the Super Bowl, same outcome. And now we've just had some more banking problems. But let's continue to decode this. We have this 49 I just revealed. Republic First Bancorp is the bank that just collapsed. We take their whole name in basic English ordinal, ABC equals 123. This all adds up, as you can see below, 2227. 227 is your 49th prime number. 49 is 7 squared, or 7 sevens, which esoterically becomes 77. And if we take from this date of this bank collapse back to Chinese New Year, which was the 10th of February of this year, you're going to see this 77 connection. So we have from the bank collapse, starting off with Chinese New Year, the start of the Year of the Dragon, 7 sevens. The day after this event, by the way, was the Super Bowl with the 49ers. 7 times 7 is 49. And remember, we just had Satoshi Nakamoto's 49th birthday. This is, again, a mythological character. It's an archetype. By the way, I am actually working on a full decode blueprint coming out very soon. It's going to be called the Crypto Decoding Blueprint. I just shared an update about it yesterday, and I'm going to be breaking everything down that's important to know. Everything from the etymology behind cryptocurrency, the word spells, the symbolism, everything from colors to logos to all of that. Plus full decode on Satoshi, full decode on Bitcoin, tying it into the mythology, full decode on Ethereum, as well as some stuff on Dogecoin and Litecoin as an early part of the conversation of the story of cryptocurrency. A big decode on Ripple XRP and its significance moving forward on the world stage, all tied into this concept of the Aquarian Age. I'll also be getting into just side lessons on symbolism, so this way you can apply this to all the other hundreds of cryptos that are out there, and you'll be able to walk away from this short blueprint of about 14 videos and be able to decode every single cryptocurrency that exists. And you'll also be able to decode anything in finance, because it's all going to be covered, the basics, in this crypto decoding blueprint. So I'm really excited to get that out. One of the frequently asked questions that I get is, will that be included in the crypto courses or like anything like this? And here's the simple answer to all of this. This will be part of my decoding mastermind course. So that was just launched a couple months ago. I am working on that behind the scenes as much as I can, although this market is keeping me busy, and interviews and podcasts and everything else I have going on, of course. You guys have seen lately, I've been featured on so many new channels and been getting a lot of people reaching out to me, asking about the methods, and I've decided, to connect with as many real ones as I can, but it's making it so I only have so little time to do all the things. So little time to do all the things. But anyways, to wrap up the idea here, I will be putting this crypto decoding blueprint within that new decoding mastermind course, as well as sooner, I hope to get out this Trinity masterclass, which will also be included in the decoding mastermind course. So anyone who has the decoding mastermind course, first off, I really appreciate and I'm grateful for your support. You will have these 2 new projects loaded into that without any further action needed, no additional payment, Again, the Decoding Mastermind course was a one-time payment for lifetime access to anything that gets added to it. So I wanted to bring you the best value I possibly can. So if you're somebody who wants this new Decoding Crypto blueprint and you also want all the extra value that's packed into that Decoding Mastermind course, it is available to you guys with the best discount, and likely the price will be going up in June. So I have this kind of moment right now between here and launch of that new project. It'll be at the lowest price possible. You guys get a 20% discount as Patreon supporters. So there's that. And also I will be releasing the crypto decoding blueprint separately for anyone who just wants that, similar to the way that I did my exit strategy blueprint. Now let's get back to this, and I will have more updates coming soon on that project. I'll be giving you guys all the information. Just wanted to clear up that perhaps confusion and let people know that if you are in the Decoding Mastermind course, you're going to be getting this new crypto decoding blueprint added into your course. No further action needed. Now, with today's decode, some of you probably remember around this 49ers and Chiefs Super Bowl, I kept bringing up the 22 and 2 connections. So this 222, 22, some of you might remember this. And if I pull up this Chiefs 49ers, apologies, by the way, this is sometimes not the best browser. Super Bowl 58. Getting a little bit of lag too. So you can see right here, San Francisco 49ers, Kansas City Chiefs, they lost with 22 points. So this is really interesting that they lost with 22 points, considering this was also the second Super Bowl to ever go into overtime. So another 2. They lost the second Super Bowl also against the Chiefs, which happened in the year 2020, which is the 2-2 year. And that Super Bowl was on February 2nd, the 2-2 date. So let me reveal all of it, okay? Their first matchup was on February 2nd, 2020, the Gregorian 2-2-2-2 date. Then they have their second Super Bowl matchup. They lost for the second time against the Kansas City Chiefs with 22 points, and in the second Super Bowl to ever go into overtime. You can't make this up. So to reveal all the code behind this, we have Dragon gives you that 22, and we're in the year of the Dragon, and this Super Bowl was on effectively basically Chinese New Year, the day after, give or take. So pretty fascinating to see all these 2s. And we were talking about the 49ers and this key number 49 just moments ago. Well, if you take from Satoshi Nakamoto's 49th birthday, which was on April 5th of 2024, to the date of this bank collapse, it was 22 days apart. And Satoshi is 49 years old. Pretty interesting. Now, let's blow some minds here. So recently, I just brought up this Bitcoin hitting 73,000 on the 73rd day of the year. It's still so far the only daily close Bitcoin has above 73K. It was on March 13th, 73rd day. So just to give some context to the significance of all of this really quickly, the number 73 is the 21st prime number. And the number 21 is the most important number that shows up in our Bitcoin decodes, because the creator of Bitcoin is Satoshi Nakamoto, who is Saturn. And Saturn gives you this 21. Remember, the last Bitcoin all-time high was 69,000. Bitcoin also has 21 million Bitcoin in supply. Back to this 21. Now, what ties this number 73 into our story, and remember, 73, 21st prime number, connecting to Bitcoin and Satoshi, and this Republic First Bank was based in Philadelphia. And the Chiefs played against the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 57. Let me bring this up really quickly. So we're talking about Philadelphia. We're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. Kansas City Chiefs, who just won the last Super Bowl, played against this Philadelphia team. And the total score between both teams was 73 points. That's your 21st prime number. This was all coded in. So it's making me feel that this is an energy balance that we just watched go down, where we have Philadelphia tied to this recent bank collapse of Republic First Bancorp, Philadelphia-based bank. Eagles lose. Same team. This was all coded with sevens. We could see Kansas City scored 7, 7, 7, then 17. 17 is the 7th prime number. Like, unbelievable when you add up all of this and it comes out to 73, which is the 21st prime, and 21 is 3 sevens. 777. The jackpot. 777. So, remember, the city of Philadelphia has the same color flag and aesthetic as Ukraine. This was something I brought up during particularly that year's Super Bowl decode that I did, which is available here on Patreon if you'd like to check it out. I decoded this Super Bowl. I did not decode the last one. So the Philadelphia city loses in February 2023, and 1 month later, we have a California-based bank collapse. Then here we are now, a year later, having a Philadelphia-based bank collapse, and the California team loses the Super Bowl. Both of these rituals involving the same team, the Kansas City Chiefs. It was a pure energy balance, coast to coast. An absolutely crazy ritual. And to bring it all together, back in 2018, the Philadelphia Eagles won their first and only Super Bowl, and it was for the 2017 season. And this was the year Donald Trump became president. So it's a very interesting script that the Philadelphia team wins that year. Symbolic of the nation's first capital before Washington, D.C. And of course, after Team Zionism has confiscated all of the lands from the Aborigine. Can't leave that part out of the story. So that Super Bowl was the Eagles against the Patriots. And of course, that would be symbolic of patriotism, which is what is tied to Donald Trump, specifically through the QAnon movement. And we're talking about the year 2017, that key number 17. Q is the 17th letter in the alphabet. You go into the gematria. Eagle is 17 by the code. We also have it tying back to that 21. This is all going to tie back to Jupiter anyways, because the eagle is Mercury. It is Hermes. And I'll be breaking that down in depth in this Decoding Crypto blueprint that's coming out soon. But we're talking about the Super Bowl that was in 2018 for the 2017 season of the Eagles and the Patriots. The Patriots lost that Super Bowl with 33 points. 33 is the master number of transmutation. So this whole ritual was, again, a balancing of energy ritual. And the end of 2017 was the first popular crypto bull run. Bitcoin had a blow-off top in December of 2017, closing just 2 daily candles at 19K. And then at the end of Donald Trump's presidency, we had the C19 ritual. And this was the year the Chiefs and the 49ers had their first Super Bowl matchup that we were talking about earlier. And now here we are in 2024, and the outcome is the same. The Chiefs beat the 49ers. We've already had so many 49 rituals. We're exploring one of them today, which has to deal with this First Republic Bancorp. 227 is the 49th prime number. And what's also interesting about this 2020 connection to the Super Bowl and C19, well, that was 38 days apart from the Super Bowl day to C19 being declared a pandemic. And from this bank collapse, let me show you the dates. 4/26/2024, First Republic Bank, or Republic First Bank, excuse me. And if you take it to the recent Super Bowl, which would be 2/10, and if you were to remove the end date, you actually see that they're 76 days apart, which is a double of 38. So we have 38 times 2. And I've talked a lot about this number 38 in the Year of the Dragon Decoded, because we have that key number 24. 3 eighths is 24. So anytime we're getting 38, it's going to be powerful because of it's symbolically tied to the number 24 for our year of the X, the 24th letter in the alphabet. I don't want to get too complicated here. I know this is heavy. This is a lot of stuff. I didn't have the time to put together a full presentation with all this visuals there. It would have took me forever, but I'm just rattling out this stuff to you guys. Please be taking notes. I know it's a lot, but that's what you guys are supporting. I'm trying my best to bring the most value I possibly can during these podcasts. And if you take from this bank collapse I just mentioned to this Super Bowl, 76 days, that could be revealing a code. Again, 38 times 2 is 76. It took 38 days in between the Super Bowl in 2020 to C19 being declared a pandemic, so we have a mathematical connection there. And to add in another layer to this, 76 is another number that's symbolic of Philadelphia. They have a NBA team called the 76ers, tied to the independence year of 1776. And what's crazy, I looked into this, the last time the 76ers played in the NBA Finals was 2001. That was the year of the 9/11 ritual that we talked about earlier. And now we have here in Philadelphia a bank collapse. So it's like an unbelievable script. Now, one thing I want us to continue to focus on since this recent event with the Republic First Bank is between now and May 10th. And I'm going to show you why. So I'm going to plug in May 10th of this year. And we're going to tie it all the way back to C19. I believe that is probably the most important date or time frame in everyone's life combined because of the circumstances and what everyone had to go through and just what it was. And what I think I've figured out here, the reason why everything has been going down the way it's been going down is because it's within 49 months since C19. And that cuts off at May 10th. And I've been talking about May 10th a lot lately. I'm going to touch base on that a little bit later. But just note that from here till April 10th pushes us into 49 months. So we have this 49 code again. And April 10th was right after our solar eclipse. So we have the recent solar eclipse on April 8th. That is the Gregorian 4/8 date the following day, or what I am calling the transition date, the day in between, was April 9th, the 4/9 date, again using Gregorian. So the Gregorian 4/9 code leading into 49 months apart. It's unbelievable. And these are talking about the same two kind of projected outcomes for the Super Bowl, where the 49ers lost this year and this year. And it's all tied to this 49. So I believe this is incredibly symbolic. And just a couple days into this 49-month time frame, we have this Iran drone strike in Israel on that following Saturday. Then everyone starts talking about war again. And this follows with pro-Palestinian protests, notably the one that was at the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, the city where the 49ers are based. Then we have this fire ritual in Denmark at the historic Copenhagen Stock Exchange building. I just covered that in my last video. This was tied to the stock market symbolically. And remember that the 49ers are the gold miners tied to gold and precious metals. Whilst the stock market has been sliding lately, gold was on a run. Remember, this is all about energy balance, guys. That's what you learn as a decoder. It's not all about the duality. It's more about the balance of energy. So you see where I'm going with this. Then on April 19th, it becomes important now that everyone started talking about this guy, Max Azzarello. And when I say everyone, it's mostly been the truther community, allegedly. I haven't looked too deep into this stuff, but I've looked up a couple of things. Some stuff was sent to me, but this guy, Max Azzarello, was the one who lit himself on fire outside of the courthouse where Donald Trump's criminal trial was taking place. Now we got Trump back into the conversation, of course, because it's a presidential election year. We're getting closer to that. But we need to focus on the fact that this guy, Max, was part of a fire ritual right after the Copenhagen Stock Exchange fire ritual. And there's been many other fire rituals this year. This guy, Max Azzarello, was allegedly born in 1987. That was the year of the rabbit. And it was the year of the rabbit last year, which was also the Jubilee year. This was the year the Chiefs won as well against the Eagles, and both teams scored 73 points. As mentioned earlier, the mirror of 73 is 37, and this guy Max died at 37 years old during the Year of the Dragon by lighting himself on fire. Unbelievable. Again, this all happened during the 49th month since C19. And this guy died on the same day of that ritual, which also happens to be a 22 date numerology. That's the Master Builder, Master Destroyer number, and the same score the 49ers had when they lost the recent Super Bowl. It's not turning out to be the most positive number. So remember, before we were talking about this number 22 tied to dragon. So that's the Chinese year we're in. Another 22 connection that's crucial. The fact that this guy, Max Azzarello, died by fire on the 22 date numerology, 22 right there in the dragon code, all tied back to fire. So now we just had this first bank of the year, also called First Republic Bank in Philadelphia, all tied into this, also happening during this 49-month time frame, as you can see here. 49 months and 16 days. So let's see how all this gnosis fits into what's coming up, and we'll be utilizing the C19 date of March 11th as the genesis of it all. We'll connect March 11th to this upcoming Monday, which will be the 29th, including the end date, and we have 1,511 days. This could be significant, something to keep in mind, because this is a big, important prime number specifically to our Year of the Dragon decode, which has the 24. 240th prime. Remove the 0, you're back at 240. And that's a rule that we always do when we have these zeros as decoders. You want to remove that 0, and then that way you get this number that's hidden within it. 0 is not a number, neither is 1. Technically, those are states of consciousness. Look at it as with or without. Like when the light switch is turned on in the house or turned off. That is 1 or 0. It's the basic way to put it. It's the same thing with life. You either have life or you have death for the avatar, for the body. When you see something that is alive, you see it has movement, it breathes, it walks around, it has personality. When something is dead, you could clearly see that it is dead. It is no longer breathing. It no longer has prana moving through it. So one can simplify this concept as 0 or 1, with or without. All right. So with numerology, we want to remove that 0, get back to this 24 before reduction, of course. And we have that 24 throughout this entire year, as I've shown in the Year of the Dragon Decoded. Please watch that if you haven't. So the fact that this date to this date are bringing that code up, it could definitely be something to keep in mind. Now, this date of April 29th, 2024 perfectly ties in to Chinese New Year. If I pull up this February 10th, 2024 without the end date, this was Chinese New Year, the Year of the Dragon, and you could see they're 79 days apart. 79 is tied to the dragon. 22nd prime number, dragon is 22. This 22 and 79 connection comes back to gold, because gold is the 79th element on the periodic table. Again, we just talked about the 49ers, the gold miners. The Chinese New Year that we had started on this. Oh, sorry. I meant to say with the end date tied to the 11th. It doesn't really matter, though. You have the proof right here. So taken from Chinese New Year to April 29th, including the end date, 79 days. Same story. But I want you to see right here how Chinese New Year was also on this 2442 code. I talked about this a lot as well. That 42, again, bringing back in Saturn, important in this conversation. 42, Saturn as the father of Zeus or Jupiter. And this Jupiter symbol is the 24. It's the symbol we see with the Olympics that are coming up in Paris soon. They literally just put the 24 symbol. And then the new symbol is the flame, the torch. And somebody made a comment that that's always the symbol. No, it isn't. Just look up yourself all of the past Olympic symbols and you're not going to see the similarity at all. Anyways, I don't have any energy to argue with people. People just need to do some research before making comments. But getting back to all of this and tying it all together, this could be something symbolic for this April 29th date in both ways, connecting it to this Year of the Dragon, fire, and connecting this date to C19 by 1,511 days. That is the 240th prime. We could do the same thing for the 30th as well. If you wanted to remove this end date, you could kind of see it from that perspective as well. You still have this 79 connection, and it being on a Tuesday, that is Mars Day, God of War, and the day before Beltane. So this will be like one of the last elements that I bring into all of this, because I know people have been asking about it and my take on it all. So we have Beltane giving you the 59, and just look how Dragon also gives you 59 in the same cipher, and Beltane is this Celtic fire festival. I can't even imagine what Burning Man's going to be like this year, because we've already had a Burning Man, Max Azzarello, and we're probably going to have many more. And I'm not laughing as if it's a joke. It's like, it's just, this is what it is. It was like talking about all the water rituals last year, and we were prepared for those. Literally, we had a flood at Burning Man. A flood in the fucking desert. You can't make this up. You cannot make this up. We had a flood in New York City during Ripple's proper party. Like, what? Ripple tied to ripple of the water? Water symbolism? Admiralty, maritime commerce? Like, it's all there. No, the elite, the apex predator, whoever's controlling this whole thing, like, they've given us the ingredients to cook. We just gotta cook. Like, that's what I'm here doing. I'm learning how to decode the recipe, and we have all the ingredients. We have all the instruments to make this song. We just got to see through it all and not have any bias, because when you have a bias towards something, you want it to always go well. And when you're always doom and gloom, well, then you're always going to manifest that. So you have to remove both of those things. You have to transcend that duality and go in the middle. There you get clarity. And that's what I hope this has all done for you. Like, it's revealed to you how to decode the symbolism, all of these ideas, to not make it be about good or bad, the duality, to make it more be about, well, this is clearly the energy we're working with right now. And to remind yourself that energy always needs to be balanced. Like, when you eat a bunch of food, you eventually use the bathroom. Right? It's just how it's all ins and outs. Everything has some sort of decay, rise, fall, crash, etc. Just think like nature, and it starts to reveal to you a lot of truth. One other thing we were talking about Beltane is tied to the date of the Bavarian Illuminati, which was allegedly found on May 1st, 1776, which is the same year as the USA independence. So keep in mind, 1776, and this is very important, 1776 was the year of the monkey, and the next year of the monkey is from January 2028 through February 2029. And guess what that is? That's the next Shemitah year. That's the next 7-year cycle we have. And remember, what happened a year before this Shemitah in 2021? We had 2020 C19. And it lasted the 2 years through the year before and the year of. That was how I was able to determine the Chiefs would win the Super Bowl 2 years ago with the Eagles. Because remember, I did not decode last year. I just didn't have the time. But I was able to tie in the fact that it's very interesting how this guy won, this Patrick Mahomes guy gets all this prana, and it's happening the year before this event goes down, and then we see how it unfolds, and it ended at that specific time frame tied to the Spanish flu, which is something we talked about, the 2 years and 2 months code, 22. Remember the 49ers just also with 22 points? This 22 is all about balance of energy, building and destroying. So it's amazing how coded C19 was with these 22s. But I don't want to go too many different directions here. It's just, I think that is something to keep in mind. The fact that we have this 1776 year of the U.S. independence. The next time we have the year of the monkey, that was the year 1776, will be during our next Shemitah. And that Shemitah will also be during the 100th anniversary since the Great Depression. It'll also be the year before the alleged scary, spooky Agenda 2030, which I know many of you probably know about. And I'll decode that when the time comes. You know, it's not important to talk about so much at right now because there's so much negative prana going towards it. It's almost like the elite are using it as us to manifest and create it. And that's when the antithesis of what I'm about and what the wolf pack is about. Like, we're not going to make their sick, evil plan come true. Fuck that. That's not what we're about here. Like, we're doing what we're doing right now, seizing the opportunity to then reconnect and rebuild and do all the beautiful things that we have in our life, that we desire to have in our life. Why not? What's the point of being super rich and just having yachts and throwing money around on useless liabilities when we could build a better, world for ourselves. I've talked about this so many times. Why complain about the food shortage when you could grow a garden? Like, come on, man. So many people, they don't get it. They want to just point fingers and play the victim game and say the New World Order is causing all these problems and issues, but then they never want to take action. And that's a sad thing. You know, we have so much resources, so many beautiful people in the community that have skills, talent, and awareness. Like, it's time we tap into all of that, man. No more room for complaints. Like, you got to seize this opportunity, and hopefully this crypto bull run will allow you to grow your stack so that you can now invest in the bigger, better, more important stuff, the stuff that is of your purpose. Getting back to this, that year of the monkey connection, I think, is big. I've talked about it a little bit in the past. I will be making a decode for that before that year comes, but it's not important right now. But that 1929 time frame of when the bubble popped in September 1929, it was right around Rosh Hashanah that year, the Hebrew New Year. During that same calendar year of 1929, between September to November, let me pull this up for you guys, by the way, the S&P chart. It's wild. We go to like the weekly, turn this into area. All right. You see right here, this is 1928, Year of the Dragon. Topped out in 1929, right here into September. This correction right here was almost 50%, and it happened from October 7th to November 11th. Pretty much within 1 month, most of this correction happened. And from the top here was about 45%, I believe. Yeah. It's actually slightly different if I pull up a daily chart, because this is cutting off all the wicks and everything, looking at a line. But effectively, this was an immediate correction of about 40 to 50% if you had all the data, not just these closures on the weekly, for instance. That's big for how quickly that all went down. And that was during the year of the snake, which would be next year. So one thing to keep in mind about all of this is that this correction started near the end of the year of the snake, and that is next year for us. And I think that that could be something to take into consideration, since 1928 was bullish during the entire dragon year, as we usually are. And of course, we're in the dragon year now, and then we extended bullish into the snake year before this euphoria was humbled. So we do extend bullish into some snake years, and I'll cross that snake year bridge when we get closer. But for now, we're still in this year of the dragon. We got to focus on what it is to take advantage of this opportunity that's presenting itself now. And it's important we just wrap up today's decode, move on to the charts. We have this 49 code that I've been telling you about, all tied to C19 back on March 11th, 2020. 49 months up until May 10th. So got to keep this in mind. That's less than 2 weeks of time between here and now. I think it's only like 11 days between when I post this and May 10th. And I remember how many times I brought up May 10th. Since back in the year of the dragon in 1940, we had this event go down with, right here, National Socialists invade France, Belgium, Luxembourg, the Netherlands. Remember, I was talking about France earlier regarding the upcoming Olympics that'll be hosted in Paris. You see right here, June 3rd, Germans bomb Paris, Germans enter Paris, Hitler tours Paris. You see? We're living a script. This was in the summer. We have this Summer Olympics in Paris during the Year of the Dragon. Interesting, eh? So just keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. For those that are firm believers of where similar to 1973, I brought this up a while ago. I also brought it up again during this Year of the Dragon Decoded, how in the Summer Olympics that year we had the Munich Massacre, again in Germany. We're talking about Germany many times throughout all of this. But I don't think it's Germany and Paris and all of these players directly that are fulfilling the script. They will in some way, but I think really the war vibe is all about the Balkan nations right now and what's going on in Israel. So we brought up May 10th many times, and then also during the following year in May 10th, the same day, 1941, which was right after the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. I covered it last podcast. That was the same day, May 10th, heavy bombing in London, and the British bombed Hamburg in response, Hamburg, Germany. Big events during both years, and we have connections to both years, since one was the year of the dragon, which we're in now, and the other was the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which we just had last week. They're both connecting in some way, both having an event on May 10th. And May 10th would effectively be the last day while we're still in this 49-month time frame before it's over. But that's a little obvious. So the more esoteric, even though 99% of the world won't know what the hell I just said, but it's becoming a little obvious that there's too much patterning in the script. I just want to share that May 19th is pretty fascinating to me. Also the 68 date, which has ties to war, lots of wars, and I've brought this up several times. But it's also including the end date, 1,531 days since C19, and this is the 242nd prime, the palindrome of the number 24. I don't want to seem like I'm reaching here, but palindromes are powerful. This whole past week was full of palindromes, by the way. Some of you might have seen like screen caps or memes about it. So palindromes are powerful. And then also, if we were to tie this to October 7th, I believe we have one more connection for 2023. The day before, the 18th, and this was when Israel declared war, and you have the 224. Now, without the 0, that would be our year we're in now, 224 year. And since last week, I put so much emphasis on the late May full moon. This is why these dates of May, near the end of May or around the May full moon, are so important to me. And I believe with the recent events that just happened between Iran and Israel, followed by that fire ritual in Copenhagen, right after the solar eclipse, just like right after the April solar eclipse in 1940, Denmark was ritualized. I was showing you that leading up to that event. You could have the connection right here, April 9th, National Socialists invade Denmark. Right after our solar eclipse, which we also had an April 7th solar eclipse in that year. Both Year of the Dragon, both involving Denmark. Wild. So this script is bang on. I will continue to focus on decoding this 1940 World War II script and then taking 1941 into consideration, with that being the last Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. And before we jump into the crypto charts, let's just quickly review the S&P really quickly because of what happened last week. We talked about this a little bit in the intro of today's video. Getting back to the candlesticks, we're going to put on the daily chart. And we talked about this very important week of into May 1st, and that there was a bull trap, a micro bull trap for the stock market into May 1st. That was a pattern that we saw playing out in many dragon years, and here we are. So this was last candle close when I filmed the red pill, and then I talked about a micro bull trap into May 1st, and we've gotten a tremendous bounce since, and this is effectively looking exactly how it did in the structure of all the prior dragon years where we moved up to May 1st. So we have like 3 more candle closes left before this is all said and done. We're getting this push up into the monthly close. It's textbook. So I pulled a fib. We have this 0.5 fib is what we've just tested and gotten a rejection. That would be a typical level to get rejected for a dead cat bounce. The dead cat bounce would be a rejection at the 0.5 fib followed by a lower low or a break of this low here. And we shared this target box, which is not the most important thing. It's just about continuation to the downside. And the reason I made this box at the time is because it was in alignment with the 200 moving averages. So this box is subject to move, but the 200 simple and the 200 exponential are right around this level. And this green line that I drew is about the territory that you could anticipate a deeper correction for the S&P. And that would be about 9.5-ish%. That's nothing. We've done that so many times moving into the correction from late March into May. Now, we have this FOMC meeting on May 1st, so this trading day is going to be crazy volatile. And for anyone that can't stomach that, just don't even look at the charts that day. We'll likely get some wild price swings between market open tomorrow and Thursday, the day after the FOMC on May 2nd. And just some words of wisdom. This is all speculation, by the way. When the market makes these moves based off of what Fed Chair Powell says, it shows this whole market is like slaves listening to their master. It's fucking sad. But that's just the way the market works. They're sitting around like children waiting for their God to tell them what's going on. It's despicable. But that's what it is. That's how the market operates. That's what they want. That's what the people who have the most money are doing. So they're playing on all of that. And they're using our emotions to take your money, basically. And I know this is market talk, but it does affect the crypto market. So this volatility will absolutely affect the crypto market with an even more noticeable level of speculation. We're used to that around here, though. So if you aren't, just remember that I'm telling you now, FOMC week is wild. And if you check back in on the last FOMC, which was March 20th, that was effectively our market top before everything corrected except for gold. So let's quickly look at the DXY. This is powerful. I've talked a lot about this in the past. I haven't been tracking it as much, but I had some of these key trend lines here for you to keep in mind. One of which was this support, and the other was this horizontal green line followed by this red line. And this idea of any corrections between now and then should gravitate back to this red line at 107, key number. Now that we've broken above this green trend line, horizontal trend line, we've come and back tested it, which is something that we typically consider to be bullish for this particular chart. It's not bullish for the stock market, by the way. I'll clear that up in a second. But when you break above a resistance and back test a level, then you would continue to the upside. And this would be your high to keep in mind. So anything above 106.4, I would suspect this goes to 107.3. And if not, even a little higher, 107.9 is in the cards. And I'll show you why. Because if I zoom out and I put it on like a bi-weekly or a weekly chart, you'll see we have an even bigger trading range back here from 2000 all the way down to the swing low of 2008. So this was the dot-com bubble. This would be like the housing subprime mortgage crisis. You see where we're at right now, this dotted line across the screen, and you have 107.9 as the top of the golden pocket. So we got above that for a quick moment, and it had to do with this smaller horizontal trading range from here to here. And we tapped on the 1618 fib before a correction down to the top of the golden pocket. This is what I teach. When you break above the golden pocket, you then head quickly into the golden ratio. Then you come back to test it. So this is turning out to be pretty fucking bullish. This back test is glorious. If we can make it up to this 786, I think that would be where we stall out for now and then continue on our bull run. But this would be in alignment with a May correction. Now, let me clear that up. DXY up means indices down, so crypto down. But in my opinion, we only have really about a month of bearish energy left anyways. So whatever bearish energy we get, it's buy the dip signal. I'm just saving you time on that. And that's not financial advice or investment advice. It's just what we typically see. A May correction, a buyback after that. June pivot point. So June and July should be pretty awesome this year if all things go according to the cycle. Let me pull up the daily chart on Bitcoin. Actually, let's go straight to the bi-monthly. I'm going to turn this all off. We have Bitcoin on the 2-month candles, and this is a very precarious 2-month candle. This type of structure. If we close red on this, it would be an incredibly scary doji. If we have a real big red that sends us to like 47 quickly, then I don't even think that would nearly be as bad. But if we were to doji this, that indecision candle at that level, that would look like a top. I'm not the biggest on candlestick analysis, though. I don't think it's nearly as important as the esoteric. Just keep that in mind, though. With this big upside wick, a red doji would be scary. So that would be anything closing below 60K on this upcoming April 30th or whatever the last day is. But this is effectively still in a continuation pattern. We've gotten these weird dojis in black swan environments. So right here, that was the March 2020 black swan, C19. Over here, you get a couple of these sideways months between January and February 2016. This was around the Bitcoin halving, the halving back in 2016. Big rallies since. These were some really strong bi-monthly candles that we had, but this one that we're getting right now is clearly showing weakness. And I think it makes sense. We pushed up off that narrative of the Bitcoin ETF way too fast. And now that we're like 60 days, 50 something days trading sideways, it's clearly a bull trap for those people that were just thinking we're going up forever. I talked about this on the last update that I shared. Don't let this market maker hypnotize you, like be a wolf about this. So we have the monthly candle. This is looking okay. If we were to start closing below 61, that would show absolute weakness, especially if that was to be a doji as well, like an indecision candle, if you will. But that would be a bearish engulfing candle. So just to summarize this, if we were to close red but below this prior candle's open, which would be somewhere below 61K, 60,000, sorry, if it was below 61,000, but around 60,500, I want you to keep that in mind. If we were to close 60,500 or lower, that would be a bearish engulfing candle, and that to me would signal a swipe to the downside that I do think will get bought back up. And I want to get to the Mercury retrograde analysis for a second because we've anticipated this anyways. You see over here, we get this reversal candle, but then the following one we ended green, although we had it dip slightly lower. I do think something like that could go down. So let me show you what I mean by that. We're going to be pulling up the Mercury retrograde analysis. I'm going to show all the drawings here. Okay, one thing at a time. We were tracking this Mercury retrograde analysis way in advance, and I told you how it's likely to go. I wanted you to mark your charts here for whatever we close the daily on the first day, and then anticipate, although we do get some buyback into the end of Mercury retrograde and it looks sideways, we still get a lucrative dip sometime during it. In plain English, sideways and down. And that's what we got. 80% of the time Bitcoin does this during Mercury retrograde, especially if we're in eclipse season, which we were. Now, if you look at this last iteration, you see how we pulled back into the end and then we shot out bullish, followed by this being a bull trap. This is a really messed up bull trap too, because we made higher highs. So we made higher highs. And if you look at the structure here, we were holding it for 2 months before we broke down for this bear trap. So yeah, really elusive move to the upside, followed by the downside. As above, so below, classic crypto nonsense. Also, we have over here, this was something we brought up a couple times because we have Mercury retrograde, we have eclipse season, and then we have it following a dip a little bit later around the full moon of the following month. So we have, this is your full moon. We had a big correction on 5%. And then it lasted and extended about 10 days after. And then once we got into this new moon within 5 days, we started to recover bullish. But this was a huge horizontal trading range, which was actually quite healthy. All of the accumulation should have really been done during back then. So we talked about here for months. And this past halving is now the last thing I want to talk about. So we have a halving. We moved up bullish immediately after. This ended up being your lowest daily close for the rest of the cycle, by the way. The halving day of 2020 in May, we never went lower ever again. Crazy. But you see how sideways and boring we were for a while. So we were sideways for about 77 days. You see eclipse season. You see over here this red box is Mercury retrograde. Sideways, a little bit down, but overall just really boring. I think we need boring right now. That would be healthy. Here we have eclipse season. We had this post-eclipse fake out to the upside. We recently had us bullish all the way until the solar eclipse, and then we got our pullback. And then the pullback we got was to the 200 exponential moving average. You see that right there? Perfect test. Over here, when we were post-halving, we pretty much tapped on the 200 with kissed it during the last halving. And then recently we haven't tested it in a while. The last time we tested it was back during the solar eclipse of October, late October, which is when everything flipped bullish. Now, if you look at where our 200 moving averages are today, you see this? They're at 51,000, 52,000, which is in this horizontal trading range here. I brought it up in this chart a million times, previous trading range. You could see where this 200 EMA is. So if we were to come down and just tap that level, that would be what we've done in many other iterations. But keep in mind, in 2 out of 3 halvings, We never went lower than the halving date after. I don't believe that's going to be the case this time. I'll be very clear. I do think Bitcoin has an opportunity to go lower than 60K. I do. I don't think there's any set rules for the halving, by the way. I'm not like a believer in that. It's very exoteric. Everyone knows about the halving. You could all look it up. I care about the esoteric. So here we have a fractal, which I'm not the biggest on fractal analysis, but this fractal pull I have shows if we were to have this boring sideways phase, it would be coming down into May 20th anyways, and it would be just furthering on the support at 60K. Yeah, boring. Or we get a shakeout, and the shakeout would send us probably somewhere as low as like 52, 51. A healthy pullback would just be around 56. So right here, it's 56, 57. Let me extend that out a little bit. And then we have the deeper corrective target at 52. So we're going to keep tracking these levels. It's the same story. Now over here, you're looking at the daily chart on Bitcoin. You see we have mapped out our resistance. It's clear now that resistance is around 71 to 72K. We also have our monthly supports drawn out, which is somewhere between 71 to 73. By the way, I showed you guys this all the way back here before the solar eclipse, and we've been perfectly getting rejected at our resistance and perfectly holding on our supports. So this is really crucial data, meaning that if we were to close lower than the 61K area, that would be where we anticipate the next big leg to the downside, and that would be one of the best buying opportunities possible. But at this time, I want to show how we got a wolf cross of the 8 below the 55, and then we came back up to the 55 plus rejections. That is big, all right? That rejection is big. Now, if we close below a daily at 61, this will definitely tell me that we're sliding lower, like 100%. I don't think we'll just fill 59 and then bounce again. It's like we've already done that, okay? Bitcoin now is getting weaker by the day if it can't start getting back above 70K. That's just clear data in the charts. So that's my feeling. I'm short-term bearish, long-term very bullish. But short-term, I do think all of the technicals are saying slide down below 59 is likely if we start closing dailies back at this low 60K territory again. Remember, we have this slight bull trap that I talked about into May 1st, but after that, we could decouple and we could continue going lower even during this upcoming new moon. So just being honest, like May is just a pullback month across the board. We'll have to see how it goes. But with this rejection at the solar eclipse, big pullback that followed with a lower low, buyback to the 55 simple after a wolf cross and a rejection there, that's weakness. Weak. When we zoom out though and look at like a weekly chart, it looks amazing. But I'm talking about in the short term, because I know that's what everyone wants to know now. Like, where's the pullback? What's going on there? Also, you might see this little pattern I had. So this was this rising wedge. Rising wedges are typically bearish. We did technically fulfill the downside target, but that's just a short-term pattern. It was a great call out for those that are following along, but I don't really care about this stuff. It's fun. It's great that the call out was accurate on this rising wedge, but that's just typically how the TA goes there. There's a bigger story. I'm just considering the bigger story. Yeah, 59 getting breached again. I think we're sliding lower. So let me continue on. The Bitcoin story is weak right now. Also, Ethereum, I'm going to touch on next with this 55 information, but you could see right now all of our moving averages are in bearish posture on the daily for Bitcoin. We have the 55 above the 34, above the 21, above the 13, above the 8. So we're below all of that. The 55 is at the top. That's not good. That's a bearish thing. All right. Look, this was the best buyback that you got was during that time frame where the 55 was above all of the moving averages. Same story back here. Look at this. 55 at the top, buy. 55 at the top, buy. It's not my opinion. 55 at the top during this flash crash, buy. You see the relationship though? We start trading below the 55. The 55 gets above at the top. We backtest the 200s, backtest the 200s, backtested these 200s. We even went slightly lower. Let's keep this in mind. We could be backtesting these 200s, and that would be an incredible buying opportunity. If I looked at the Pi cycle indicator, let me refresh this and just see where it's moved to. It's probably moved to like 56 by now. God, crazy, 57. And I've showed you many times how when we interact with this green moving average for the first time, we get lower than the gold, but we always backtest the gold. You see, we backtested after the first interaction with the green, and we went lower. And we stayed lower for a hot minute. So yeah, we could have another 20 to 30 days of sideways Bitcoin with a lower low. It all is just a buying op though. Now I want to touch base on one thing with ETH and then we'll move on. So ETH has been a little bit more bullish lately off of this buyback, but it's because it hasn't yet backtested the 55 simple. Bitcoin already has early. Now if you look, this 55 simple on the 12-hour, we started to get above it, but the moment we did, we've gotten some rejection. So we'll have to see how this all goes down. With ETH and altcoins, it's not as simple. You have to pull up so many different things and keep so many extra things in mind. And they're a lot more volatile on lagging moving averages, for instance, on lagging indicators. But yeah, the fact that we already had, a 30% correction is like enough, Yes, we can go lower. Yes, we could probably tap on the 200s, somewhere around 2,600 to 2,800. Sure, we saw that happen here. We saw that happen here. We saw a whole phase below it. That would be great. That'd be a gift. But don't get greedy right now. I talked about this with this analysis here of the total three. We don't have to talk too much about ETH because there's not really much of an update. It's the same analysis effectively as Bitcoin. But this moment over here is what we're doing right now. You see this? Getting into the golden pocket, holding for a little bit, pump, dump, buyback. So getting into the golden pocket initially, breaking below it. We even tapped on the 0.5 fib, which is incredible. That was an insane buying opportunity because after this shit just went parabolic. So if there was a time frame to start anticipating this more parabolic phase, it would make sense to me for it to kick in sometime during June into July. We could very well be breaking above this golden pocket and retesting all-time highs by August in total 3. So right now, while we're here, if we were to drop back to this trend line, we're still 85% away from retesting prior highs. Please be aware that what people do in the stock market over multiple years isn't even close to 85%. That could be happening in 2 months. So if this happens, by the way, things like VeChain, Hedera, Algor, all of the projects, especially stuff like Data, T-Fuel, they're going to go up hundreds of percent in a small time. So why wait when you have this opportunity presenting itself? It's effectively already started to present itself. This is also my way of saying we're not in an alt season. We're not. This isn't an alt season. This is an alt season. When you just shatter through everything with almost no slowdown. Here we're just kind of building. We're building. It's good. I actually like it. I think it's better. It's healthier. It's too soon for an alt season. Let's go to XRP. A couple things to say here, but not too much. Mamma mia. Okay, this is just still going. So I don't think this is valid anymore. This could potentially be valid for many reasons, one of which it's been this falling trend line since we had this jolt up from the first big win for the Ripple case. SEC not deemed a security anymore. This isn't the cleanest trend line on earth, but the movement of XRP isn't the cleanest. So you just got to kind of be a little bit more experimental if you want to use trend lines. But we can see clearly touch points, all these touch points, rejection. We broke above it. We tried to stay on top of it, but we just flash crashed too fast. And now we're back on top. So that could be good. And over here, you see this dotted trend line, bunch of tests down there. I've presented this in a couple of podcasts that I've been invited onto, that this is as good as it really gets to the downside. And it's been holding since C19. You can see all of the tests on this dotted line are insane buying opportunities every single time. And it's been a hot minute since we back tested this one. Effectively March 2023. It took us a little over a year to back test it again. And it was a quick bounce. So this 40s area might be, that might really be it. As long as this trend line continues to rise, of course, which it has been. And it has been respecting the entire time. We rarely close daily candles below this, and we still haven't this time around. So why go against a trend line that's been in play since, first of all, the worst moment ever in crypto history? Everything went lower lows here. And then this was your flash crash backtest because of an isolated black swan to Ripple. Now we've been respecting this trend line for over 4 years. It's on 1,500 days. So this is really as good as it gets, but I can't update too much. We're in this horizontal trading range and we have yet to leave it. And we can't really get bullish again until we start breaking above 82 to 83 cents. So while we're down here, we're just in accumulation, right? It's just continuing its accumulation cycle. Can't put too many updates. I'm not bearish on this, although the fact that it is still squeezing in this area tells me that an explosive move is coming. That's just the way charts work. So it's likely to be sooner than later, but at the end of the day, if Bitcoin is to take another leg lower to 57, I do think this will come down with it. It might just hold though and fill more in this 48, maybe wick to 46 a couple more times. I think that's going to really bore out the XRP community. It's going to make the XRP investors lose lots of faith in this. It's going to lower the morale, and that's the kind of time to be the most excited. Don't fall for that energy coming in, but I think that energy will come in. I've already seen it. For me, I'm not playing the game of emotions, though. It's irrelevant. But as a technical analyst, there's no more updates. It's just still chopping in the same range that it's been in for the past year now. Let's move on to loop ring. Okay, so I have covered this. Wow. I don't remember the last time I covered this, but you could see here what I did was I pulled a fib in reverse from this swing low to the swing high. So the fib is pulled for a bearish target of the 1618. Now, if I extend this all the way out, you see what I did here. From this level to there, that was your support this entire time. Like it was like the crystal ball. And we've back tested it recently. Holy shite. It's crazy. So yeah, loop ring is still down a lot. Still down 93% from all-time high. We know that this is the level of significance, somewhere between 18 cents. Just going to move it up a little to be clean, and 31 cents. And as long as we're chopping in between that range, we are now still below the 236. I'm just going to go ahead and imagine we are. Yep, we are. There's your 236. Let me double click, make sure that my setup is right. Bellissimo. So we got this rejection at the 382. That was your attempt at breaking out. But what I see here, what I believe is going on is a textbook Wyckoff. And what I mean textbook, I'm applying it to how the Wyckoff method is usually used, not like a more experimental version that I've adjusted for crypto. What this means is this is your buying climax. This is your selling climax. This is your automatic rally, although a very uneventful one. It's a true AR. This is your true spring, as low as it gets and as scary as it gets. And then this is your test zone. So until you start breaking above this 382 fib, which is the next line I'll draw on the screen, until you really concretely start breaking above this with like weekly closes, you're still in the test phase, which is a buying opportunity. And anytime you're below the 236, you're in a buying opportunity. Look at the amount of upside. This is probably, I'm going to guess 2,600% from here to prior all-time high. Okay. Not that close, but still 1,400%. The reason I brought up the 2,000 is because I've seen projects that have lost this much value have about that much room to retest prior all-time highs, and it's crazy. So with this, you don't even need to speculate on a new all-time high. You don't. You could buy now, and you could effectively just getting back into that territory. You're doing 1,000%. Okay, so I'm not that off if we pulled from the absolute low. I said 2,600, it's 2,300, but still crazy gains, right? To get in here and then to be able to de-risk somewhere between the 888 and the 0.1, and you're in 1,000% gains. Like, shit, right? Unbelievable. I'm not saying it'll do that, but just keep that in mind. Now, look at the last bull cycle for this. It didn't really make it into any like higher. I don't even think it made it into the one. Oh, it did. Okay, so like barely tapped on the 1618 if I was to pull it in linear. I don't love doing that though. Now, if that was the case in this, we would be far below the 236, but let me show you where the 1618 would be. $6. So if it was to repeat what it did in the last cycle, that would be like, what, 4,000%? Okay, yeah. So like that 2,300-ish gets you into price discovery. I don't know if we would go much more than that. We weren't able to go much more than that in the last cycle, so just keep that in mind. When pulling a fib from this swing high of 2018 down to this swing low in linear. So when I double click on the fib, this, oops. What the hell's going on? Are you serious, bro? So temperamental. Anyways, I know I could have just did that before, but I was like, what's going on? Is my computer like glitching out? So double click on this. We're going to scroll to the bottom. We have this setting turned on. Anything above this 382, which is about 54 cents, that would be onto your SOS. And during your SOS phase, you have backup. You have some like kind of last points of supply along the way, LPSs, a little bit of chop. You know, we had one here. This big jolt out was like your first big SOS, and then you had this backup phase, and it had 2 backup phases. So this was very elusive. And let's look from the C19 crash to this cycle high, 10,000, 14,000%. Crazy, man. So yeah, this is wild. I do find this to be slightly attractive as a venture capital position just because of how low it is right now based on where it could head back to and the opportunity for price discovery, although I wouldn't put too much emphasis on that because we did see projects only able to get back to the golden pocket in the last cycle, and some big names, notably XRP. I believe Dash was another one. I believe Monero only got slightly above prior all-time highs, but most of its trading was just in the golden pocket, the macro golden pocket. Stellar Lumens was another example of stuff that was only able to make it back into the macro golden pocket. So just saying, even if that was the case, from where we're at now to getting slightly above there, 700 to 800% is amazing. You know, and sometimes when I say this, people get triggered because they're like, but there's an AI play that did a 10,000. It's like, dude, you know how quick you have to get out of that shit, though? Those are rug pulled all the time. These things go up and then they lose 99.99% of their value. Like, you need to know how to play that game. They're not investments, they're trades. An investment is something you could hold on to for years and years and years, and it's appreciating, and it has some sophisticated chart structure. Like all these AI plays that I've seen that do these crazy moves, it's like it's done. They do the big move, and then a lot of them, all the liquidity gets swiped away. It's not safe. And I know that if you are part of that stuff, great. But if I told you the amount of people that reach out to me that are like, have you ever gotten rug pulled? Because I've gotten rug pulled 10 times in the last year. I'm like, what? How? Because they're playing with shit coins all day, which a lot of these AI projects are. AI is shit. Like, I get people want this to be some revolutionary, awesome technology, but I'm not drooling over it, man. I think it's going to create a lot of mental health problems. People are already like so inactive and not trying to learn skills. So AI just adds another layer to you being lazy, you just leveraging on stuff, and you're going to have no purpose. Humans are going to skip the process completely, and you'll only have the outcome. That's going to lead to some torment, some inner suffering that has never been seen before. So fuck that AI shit. Like, use it. Don't let it use you. But the examples that I've seen of the charts are unbelievable. And the people that have reached out to me that are showing these rug pulls. Yeah. Don't get caught up in shiny object syndrome. This is an interesting chart, though. It had an incredible performance in the last bull run. It did lose a ton of value in the bear market. What doesn't? Everything does. Everything loses 99. You know, there's so many examples of stuff that's recovered and done amazing moves just like this did in the last cycle. So far in this one, also lost about 95. Most projects did. It's just yet to break out into this bullish phase of catching up to, for instance, Ethereum or what Solana did. So yeah. But below the 236, in this range that it's been chopping in for a while now, like building this big horizontal trading range, when Bitcoin really moves into price discovery and we have a true alt season, I do think this will probably come back into the 786 to 888 territory, maybe a double top, and that double top could even be considered somewhere around $6 because on a macro chart, it'll just look like a slightly higher high bull trap. So some opportunity there in loop ring. Interesting chart. Let me pull up Algorand. I don't know what's going on here. Ooh, okay. So we're looking at Algorand. We're going to zoom out, see what's going on. We're still below the 236. Yay. Also, this had a prior all-time high that was above the cycle high of 2021. So with where this is trading at as we speak, let me zoom. What the hell's going on here? It's frozen. Okay, it's moving. Whatever. Yeah, going back to this prior high, it's somewhere around 1,000, 14,000, 1,300, 1,400-ish. All right, but I'm zooming in now because this trend line is fascinating. We had this touch. I built this trend line around here, and then we broke below it and since have gotten rejected on it. Now, is this going to turn into a head and shoulders? You tell me. That would be devastating. So, what's the name of the game here? Get back above the 382, boy. All right, this 382 is everything. That's what I keep teaching. It's the level. You see over here, we were holding it. Here, whoop. Here we got rejected. This is big. Getting rejected here, coming back to the 236, typically means anything that's below the 236 is one of the best buying opportunities you can get. So, one thing to say and be very clear here, though, is this is not good. This is not a good chart. This is your C19 crash, by the way. Algorand is trading back at the same levels as C19. That's a shit coin. I'm sorry. I know people like it's ISO compliant. Bro, the performance is everything. This is not performance. Bitcoin was at $3,800 right here during this. Bitcoin was like, let's just be kind. Bitcoin was 4,000 to 5,000 right over here. That's where we're trading at today. But Bitcoin is trading at 63K. Do the math. If you bought Algorand at the same time, you would have went lower in your portfolio after the bull run was into the bear market. Not many projects had a lower trading range than the C19 lows. So this is really, really a shakeout. This is not bueno. And it didn't just do it for a couple of days like in C19. It did it for months. By the way, this red line is the dip below C19 that probably only lasted maybe a couple weeks. But here, this thing lasted at that level for almost 200 days. So a great buying opportunity, but an absolute shitcoin chart. This should have recovered and held at least up here around 35 cents, but it couldn't. What do you say? You know? So yeah, this is not good. This is a bust. It would be fine if it returns back into these higher levels, but you're really speculating on something that has zero performance. And I don't really even know what we're speculating on. Hope. Part of me wants to like be ultra contrarian and invest in this thing just because, but then I'm like, well, then I'm going against my principles. Going below the C19 crash levels and trading below for 200 days is real rough. You know, I'm just being honest here. And nobody could debate that. That's just the facts of what we're reviewing. So, yeah. It's like somebody being like saying that they're the second coming of Christ, like they're the Messiah, and they're like, I could do all the things the Messiah, I could walk on water. It's like, and then they start walking out on water, and then it gets lower and lower, and then like an hour later, you're like, see their body floating. That's what this is. This is like all the claims, but it's a dead body floating on the water. You didn't have the power behind you. Good talk though. It's a bad joke, sorry. This is what happens an hour and a half into the podcast. The bad jokes come out. I'm just fucking around, but seriously, yeah, this is not looking too great. For those that are big, heavy investors in this thing, just be cautious. Like, it doesn't have the chart performance to back up this type of vibe of being overly bullish for whatever reason. you know, you need to have some data. Let's get over to Proton. Oof. Okay, we're let's get it together here. Okay. All right, 99% losses. I got my fib pulled. Oh my god. Yeah, Okay, I don't know what to say. It's just not, yeah. Did he get rejected at the eclipse too? Yeah, kind of slightly before it. This is playing the eclipse pivots pretty hard because that's what a lot of coins did. They hit lows on the eclipse of October and then they just pivoted out. This ain't looking so good. So below the 236, but like no prior chart history, and the prior chart history looks like dog shit. So what I said before about loop ring is totally different. Like when we looked at that loop ring chart, I just want to show you why I'm reacting differently, okay? All this chart data is hanging out up here, which this is way below. Loop ring, same time frame, but has some chart history, has been through a prior cycle, is up from this C19 crash by almost 1,000%. Much different than, like, for instance, the Algorand chart, which is like pretty effectively at the C19 levels. This Proton thing, yeah, it has no real chart history to work with. The prior chart data before the alt season that it had was it's very lackluster. Yeah, really nothing positive. It's 97% down from all-time highs. Yeah, so I don't get as excited about it being below the 236 in comparison to like loop ring. But even loop ring I wouldn't invest in. It's just, yeah, it's not worth it. This, on the other hand, I'll say any positive quick words. We have this 382 level, kind of fits the same narrative. We have 1, 2, 3 attempts at holding, 4 attempts. This pump and dump right here was a huge bull trap, and then it just broke down more. So this line right here is crucial. And if Proton could get above 0034 and start breaking up, then I think it could recover back into this golden pocket territory. But until then, this is going to be a tough resistance since it was a really obvious support back at the genesis of the project. And then once it started to break below here, we had a big slide. And the slide that we had, do you see how it looks? The chop to the downside, it's just devastating depression. No real recovery, no real structure. It's just an absolute parallel channel to Hades. So yeah, now we're pivoting off of this recent solar eclipse in October 2023. We've made it pretty nice recovery into this first red line in the recent eclipse, but then have gotten rejected pretty harsh since then. About a 50% correction off of that rejection. Yeah, so this is not sustaining any of its momentum, or yeah, can't really say too much. Really speculative. I wouldn't be putting large positions on this because of its chart. It's just not worth it. Okay, very different. Fetch, holy moly. Okay, so this is going to be fun. We have the prior C19 crash. This thing is up 15,000%. Very sick. And a clear structure to me. So we had our past spring SOS backup phase bull trap kind of double top vibe, but this is your distributional top. Buying climax, selling climax, automatic rally perfectly into these levels, and then back tests at the 382, which lasted for about 3 months. And then this big jolt to the upside that followed, and damn, this moved nicely because all of its rejection points are textbook. After the selling climax, we got an initial micro distributional top at the 702 fib, a rejection back to the 382, broke above it, got slightly above the top of the golden pocket, but then back tested the 702. That's clean. This is super clean. You see what I'm pointing out here? First rejection at the 702, breakdown, give a little bit of structure, buy back, get above the top of the golden pocket, and then back test the 702. The moment that shit did this, it went straight line breakout for 2 months. Crazy. I bet this has already hit the 1618. Yeah, it's already extended above. So this needs to chill now. You know, it'd be crazy bullish if this shit came back to the prior all-time high and just got a little bit of back test there. Right now, we've already seen a 38% correction, a full 50%, and then coming back to these prior all-time highs would be about 64. But there's thin air, sadly, between this and here. Because you see all of this chop, the first rejection, and then all of this horizontal chop, it's at the 888 fib, which coincidentally sits at 88 cents. So you got the 888 at the 88 cent level. That would be big if it was to come back all the way with a 74% correction. But shit, we've seen this before. Let me show you. Boom, 80% correction before this shit went straight line breakout again. So these bigger mid-cycle corrections are normal, especially when you're getting a little bit overheated too soon in the context of the overall big picture. But really technical chart. This is an easy chart to look at. The other couple of charts made my stomach hurt. This one's nice. So yeah, it's a totally different vibe, for instance, comparatively to the last 3 charts. But wow, really recovered early on in all of this. All the way back in 2020, in March, February 2023, a year ago, we were already having our AR in this. And then this nice pullback, what is this, about 3 months? 4? Yeah, it's a half a year, fucking half a year of sideways between the 0.5 and the 382. This is not a time to play around. This is beautiful. Yeah, I really like this chart. Textbook. Can't have enough nice things to say about it, although I wouldn't buy it. And the reason why is because it's at all-time highs. I don't buy all-time highs. That's just not how I roll. I'm okay with letting this pass. I have not a single bone of FOMO in my body. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care about missing out on this shit. Great play if you're in it. Take advantage. Don't just sit around hoping that it goes more and more and more and more to heaven. I mean, we do have the 1618 sitting at about $9. Can this push up to $9? Great. That's 300% move. But like, dude, V-chain moving up 300% for my entry is already happened. It's nothing. It's like a sneeze when a chart is down. Why would I buy at tops? It's silly. So yeah, get ready for perhaps a larger correction, because if Bitcoin comes back to like 60 again, this thing will be back at 186. And if Bitcoin starts to go below 59, this will start to slide fast. I think it'll be down at 126 pretty quickly. We have a little bit of hopium here at 111, but yeah, even that, $1 a level that's clean, psychological, that could be your big back test level. And then after that, you know, yeah, $9 could be in play. Let me go to finish this off with H-bar. Okay, this is very important, family, that I wrap up today's podcast with this. Just some quick thoughts on this pump and dump, all right? Words of wisdom. Never get excited on a day something pumps, because it only leads to disappointment. After this single day pump, it's now returned back to the support of a 70-day horizontal trading range. It has effectively done nothing. But you know how much FOMO came in on this day and how many people were just lighting me up, sending me a million messages. You need to cover this. You need to cover that. Why? Why would I talk about something that is just breaking out like this in a straight line when I know the outcome? I've been here before, man. This is a good distraction. You know, when you want to get hypnotized, you just keep looking at the pendulum swing. I'm sorry to break hearts, but like, this is the Red Pill podcast. You need the red pill. I hope sometime you'd want the clear pill. This was a fucking trap. Okay? And it's clear now. Look at this. It's 42% down. This is your 382 fib. It's at a buying level. I own H-bar, by the way. I'm not bearish on H-bar. I could have made money on this whole thing, but I didn't care to, because I have a much bigger time horizon and much higher targets to the upside. But this was all to sucker people in, and we're right back to where we were beforehand. Okay? So now that it's at 10 cents, this is actually a very lucrative entry level, because it's a majority of where we were trading at before. But we have this trend line. This trend line could be something to consider, although we did break below it back here in immediately after the April eclipse. The 236 is about as good as it gets. So the fact that it pierced onto this 236 and then got bought back up very quickly, it's showing me that it is keeping structure. It wants to maintain bullish, but yeah, don't get all excited about stuff like this, man. This is unsustainable when a project goes up 70% in a single day. We watched it happen with XRP before, when it went straight to the levels that it was trading at in July of last year. It was a big trap, and it got a lot of people caught off guard. People did not have any de-risking level set, and they're still holding, and they're mad about it. It's just remove all the emotion, remove all of this like energy to get excited when everyone else is excited, and get excited when it's boring. Get excited when it was correcting, when it's bearish, when you could take advantage of this. But this measly little pump that went honestly, it only went on the daily close 12% higher from the prior microcycle top. What was it worth getting so excited about? And I could imagine how much FOMO came in because it was tied to news. It was tied to an update. People love that shit. The apex predator knows this. They want to take your money. This is how they do it. So there's probably some sort of trend line to consider. Yeah, okay. We could be building a horizontal channel in this. I'll cover this on the next time I do the What I'm Investing in special, which will probably be coming up in the second week or so of May, but I just came out with one. If you want to check out the last one, just search for it. And you could get all of my take on HBAR and my idea behind the investment thesis in it. But for now, I'm just chilling. This recent event was not as it seems, clearly. The charts are now proving it. And we got to wrap up today's podcast. We have a big week ahead. FOMC meeting on May 1st. Lots to go down. Consider this idea of a micro bull trap for the indices that could be pushing us up over the next 2 or 3 trading days into the FOMC meeting. And then we could absolutely pull back starting then. And overall, the idea here is a pullback for the month of May. I will be adding to my positions if we get any deeper pullbacks, but I've already built out my portfolio long ago. So right now it's just kind of adding icing to the cake. If we get a bigger pullback, I'll take advantage, and I will absolutely be letting you guys know with updates here on Patreon and mostly in the Discord and the What I'm Buying and Selling text channel. But for now, we just got to let this ride out. Let's see what the traditional markets do on tomorrow's new daily open and over into our monthly close. This bi-monthly close is big. So I appreciate every single one of you. I hope you have an amazing rest of your weekend in the Matrix, and I'll be catching you all very soon. Much love.